Hello, hello. Sam Tolbert, Sound of Joy Music Services. And I'm just getting over the Novocaine from my dentist visit today. So I felt like going live, communicating with you, the many viewers who have been supporting this channel since 2006, and of course those who have come in during 2023. I want to know that I am thankful for your visitation on my recorded videos and on my live ones. I'd like to give an opportunity to be able to, again, communicate live with those who may be available here on the weekend, for those who will be seeing this as a replay. Uh, I thank you also. I'm just monitoring. Okay, good. I'm verifying that I'm being heard. I have in the past not verified that my speakers are my microphone is connected correctly. So when I do watch live from my iPad, I need to have the sound up so I can make sure I'm heard. So looking at my subject, mastering gospel music chords. I thank ChatGPT for that title because I was kind of at a loss to what I'd want to be able to talk about. I listen to a lot of music. Here so far this year, I'm probably over 100 plus uh, viewer requests, which keep coming in, and I appreciate it because it allows me to give my viewers what they're looking for versus my just creating something off the cuff. And as the requested viewer shares one of their songs, it's also viewed by many other viewers who maybe not have not considered that song or who said, well, gee, yeah, I've been always wanting to learn this. And what I have been discovering is that when I have completed one viewer request song, I have to wash my mind of all of those chords and move on to the next viewer requests and not carry those chords with me. So there is how can I put this? There is the ability to master that style, to say that I could take this chord from this song and I could apply it to another song, but then I don't because now it changes how that song sounds. But it doesn't mean that there is a rule that says that you can't do it. If you looked at my last YouTube short, I was practicing the chords to My Funny Valentine. And in playing those chords from a practice standpoint, again, I'm not a jazz aficionado, but I do borrow chords. I was looking at how many of those chords I have borrowed in to use in other songs. And I said, well, I said, this is something where a lot of the newer musicians will never take a look at the actual borrowing of chords from other songs to help enhance what they're building. And this is all about getting the musician of this day, of my era musicians, maybe never touched those songs. They were 100% with the church style and missed out perhaps on the big band chords, on the chords from marching bands, on the chords from um, Caribbean music, where I had to, where I not said had to, well, as a young musician in a jazz band, I had to learn the songs to be able to play my part. But it means I absorbed so many other chords that I borrowed from to make church songs sound a lot more fuller, a lot more artistically, mutistic, musically, artistically complete. So I wanted to be able to share some of that techniques and of course have conversations with my viewers. So let me just keep me not talk and let's change my scene and take you to, as I call, my workshop. The application of chords. I hate when I do this. There we go. All right. So the application of chords really becomes a an art. Now I'm in a different mode on purpose. I'm not on the piano mode. I'm in the vintage 74 mode of my Yamaha keyboard. Just to show you how just changing the sound of your instrument changes how a chord sounds. These chords you might consider to be jazz chords. Now, my chordy app will call out the chord based on the lowest note I play. So if I do a G and give you this chord, it turns into a G13 sus. But if I don't play the lowest note, it becomes an F major 7, which is its true name with minus the bass. Hey, Micah, welcome. Becomes its true name minus the bass. And what I try to stress is when you're learning your chords, use your right hand only, and the lowest note is the name. It's the root. It's the father of that key. That becomes the root, third, fifth, and the major seventh of this particular chord. Once you have the family of chords down from the root, which I consider the father, and all the siblings that come after the father, chord wise, that helps to determine how that chord in any key is named. As you go up chromatically, you see they all follow the same name, just the name of the root changes. But now when you want to apply that to particular songs, everything changes around where you place the lowest note. I can still play the same chord, but now if the whole chord name change the bass, the chord name changes. Now that doesn't sound right because that last note is supplied by other sound. The tone of it is now masked in a whole different according to the bass. You want to resolve that. Now it becomes this chord. Now, for those who want to, as a beginner piano chord, to play a gospel song is beautiful, but I find building melodies difficult. Welcome, Jimez. The melody is a direct result of whatever scale you're in. I always use the example if you were going to, and let's pick another song. Let's pick a gospel in a praise song. Oh, give thanks unto the Lord. Right in the scales. Worthy, for he is good. Yes, he is good. All based on the scales. Whatever notes you don't play are not in the melody of the song. So even those chords I had will fit. I usually don't do left hand. You usually have a bass on the left hand. So, and melody really is just how can I put it? I'm always trying to find an actual, it's not an anagram. Yeah, this is an anagram. It's a picture. It's a picture of the song, the melody. So when you hear chords, They're just a melody less path of chords, which really doesn't make any sense until you apply a melody. So if I'm going to do that same song and just did the chords, oh, give thanks unto the Lord, for He is good. Bless He is good. Now you would know that was the song if I didn't sing the melody without a melody to support that. They give the chords a bigger definition because now the melody is supporting or accompanying the chord. Well, I should say the chords are actually accompanying. See my words correctly. Dentist worked on this side this morning. The melody and gives a brighter look at what the melody sounds like. Now we're playing your generic chords. In the path of the number system. We haven't added diminished chords or what I call minor six chords. So it stays sort of in the uh, jazz family. That's a pentatonic scale, which is in the jazz family of chords. So they'll fit. So those chords will fit any time of the day. It's when you start to go outside of that you begin to, as I say, begin to get that different sound. Mm. My mind is thinking. When you start to go what I call freestyle, and I think jazz players also call it freestyling, where you're just going with how you're feeling at that very moment, something that you really can't put on paper because you're playing at the speed of thought. What is your key advice to persons who find learning the scales difficult? There's nothing difficult about learning the scales. I think if you're not given a written booklet that shows you the scales and how to properly play them, it was difficult for me to play the scales until I got a book that showed me the proper fingering for playing a scale. All of a sudden, every scale became easy to me because now I had the proper fingering. Most times people will tell you to do this. They'll say do the thumb as the one, cross the thumb underneath. Let me do this. This is always. Let's see if I still have my. I'm looking for a certain scene. There we go. They will teach you this for scales. Crossover. And then you will get bored doing this all the time. What they should tell you is how your hands should be cupped and your fingers go up underneath to make it easier. And you see my hand wrist goes up so your fingers don't get tired. What they don't tell you is to go an octave up and do the next one up. All of a sudden now, you got a whole new different look at it. Go to the next one. to the next one. What? Look, we're not starting on the thumb. Now we're starting on the third finger. And it's beginning to feel a lot easier. There we go. And now you're back to the first one again. So that's what a lot of musicians step away from. Me, I say go more than one octave. Go 2 octaves. And so on. Because that will help you to become not only freeing up your hands, but now when you want to think about doing melodies and whatever key you happen to be in, if you're in C, your hands will now know how to move. What I would practice as a youngster so that I could get more comfortable getting my hands to move. In a while since I've done this one. So that I could do this. Still in the scales, but now borrowing notes or but my hands can now move. I used to hear jazz players go. I used to wonder how could they reach those? Are they doing it like this? That hurts, but that feels a lot better. And with the ability from practicing scales, there is no song that you won't be able to learn because you will be able to hear every note that is contained in that scale. But that only comes not just practicing one scale and not one style. Once you get the major scale down, now you want to learn the minor scales, especially in gospel music, because those scales have all of your minor songs. And you become a classical player from playing the minor scales. That's one of my practice scales. All of a sudden now the scales become I can hear it in my head whenever I play the wrong note. There we go. So I always stress musicians. In fact, if you've watched any of my videos, you will see that I start off every video with the scale that song is in, because that is my way of drilling into the actual viewer how important I find scales to be. Because if I go to any key, if I were to go to B major, I want to be able to play the notes that's in the B major scale within chords. I messed it up. There it is. No, that's my version of the chord system. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. Major, minor, minor. There it is. Major, 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 minor, diminished, Major. Okay, that's the number system version of the scale in chords. I used my own version as when I was a youngster because I did not know that there was a natural chord system, which is why when I talk to the natural chord system, I get tongue tied because I never learned it. I am practicing it now, seeing how a different genre of songs uses it. But I had to develop my own. This was my 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and back to one. That was the version I used because I heard gospel music. And I said, well, gee, if I'm going to play gospel music, how can I find what chords they are applying, the gospel chord, in these particular scales? That assisted me in hearing chords in gospel songs. Now, of course, I didn't play jazz. I did borrow elements of it, easily borrow the chord without a problem because I can hear the chords based upon the notes. There we go. But because I had a foundation of the actual major scales already a part of my hearing, when I began to hear notes that were outside of the scales, if it was outside of the scale, gee, what if I heard that note is not in the scale, then I knew what note that I was searching for based upon the scale, and I heard that they were using that note in a particular chord to bring you to a particular part of the song. And the whole tone scale, which is one of which I had recently found out about. Whole tone. Whole tone. There it is. I found out I've been playing this chord for years and did not know that it had a scale of its own, the whole tone scale. So now I used it expressively when I'm playing because I know that it's there now. But I would never have known that had I not seen a video of someone teaching this is the whole tone scale. Even the books I have, perhaps I didn't venture into that scale to see that it is there. I used to have, I don't think I still have that picture up, but I posted all the different scale names that they are: Hawaiian scale, the Spanish scale, the Asian scale. They're all, someone would say that the I'll use the African American scale was all the black notes. That's just a pentatonic scale. But they said that because they could play only the black notes, they wrote songs just in that top scale. Amazing Grace. All the black notes. Now, of course, we know Amazing Grace was not written by an African American. But when they were learning to play that song, they used only the notes that they could hear that that made that song easier to learn. And of course, I look at it differently. Using all the jazz tones that I've heard and that I've practiced, I can now turn that around. There's my whole tone. Minor, seventh. There's that chord, which is a part of the major seventh chord. And the jazz turnaround. So my advice to persons who are learning, who are finding the scales to learn so difficult, you may not have my workbook that I created back in 2011. Actually, it was the sixth generation of that workbook from the very first one, where I expressively put in there scales in every key with the correct fingering. And you make that a 15-minute routine of every time you sit down to play. Do you have to play scales for an hour? Of course not. 15 minutes each time you sit down to play, though. You should open up with a scale. As you see, I was just in the key of G flat, F sharp. Give me G flat. Yeah, F sharp. It'll say it here because I'm chord is set there. I can go right into a scale in any key that I'm in because I've practiced it to the point where, and I still practice them. I think if a musician tells you, a musician, I mean, a person who has studied to become his best every time he sits down to an instrument, tells you he doesn't study his scales at all, something is wrong. He's misleading you. If you're not, if you're a musician, scales is a part of your actual DNA. It's how you keep your ears tuned, and for those that use to play the keyboard, it's how you keep your hands mobile, because you want to be able to move at the speed of light, or I call it the speed of thought. Now, I've just changed key. There we go. Down to F. If I want to go to A major. And I have different ways of practicing scales to keep my ears from becoming bored. There we go. If I want to change and go to D. And of course, as I stress in my instructions of musicians, after you have warmed up in your scales, pick a song that is your favorite to play, and then play it in the key that you would normally play it in, and then change keys using the scale exercises that you just worked on, because now your ears will hear where your notes are. And what we picked, oh, give thanks unto the Lord. If I were to pick another song, let's try and get one of the praise songs of today. Goes with E flat. This is the day that the Lord has made, that the Lord, I will rejoice and be glad in and be glad in. C, that the, back to C. In the key of E flat. So now that I know that's where the song is in the scale, I can now find my chords. Go minor or sixth. My whole tone, right? I know it's going to be the A flat. I can go down. That's the chord I want. So now I can take that melody from practicing scales, get a little jazzy with it, go for those chords that are part of the jazz family of chords, and traditional chords, or classical chords. There it is. My classical chord. Jazz. Jazz. I heard a different chord. This sound is what's throwing me off. I usually don't use that particular patch. So my chords my ears are now being thrown off because it's continually ringing some sounds. And the sound does make a difference when you're practicing. I always like the piano. Now that sounds a lot better to my ears. I didn't change that view. Better. Can't think of the chord. Ow. So this is what happens when I start to practice and I'm talking. I lose the practice routine where I know I'm going to go from here. We shall reach. There it is. That's the chord I wanted. There we go. And that's how the approach to music should be. You should want to hear your mistakes and then go back and correct them. Now I did that in E flat. What if I went to D? To E major. That scale, that scale is in there. I should be able to hear the same changes. There's my whole tone. And that's the one thing about the whole tone scales. It's always the same chords in whatever key you go to. It's the placement of where you're going to put it. C sharp. C, D, E major. But that ability, that technique only came and only comes from practicing scales, and not just with your right hand, with your left hand also. And both together, so that they can know how to work together. It is that hmm, A flat or A sharp. But it's that's a very good question. Um, when you're I was never taught to play piano. I always use this disclaimer when I go live so that the experts, when they view my live, they say, "Oh well, he's not really playing it right." You're right. You're absolutely correct. I have never sat down with a formal piano teacher to show me how to play the piano. All of my techniques come from self-learning through books and listening to every type of music that my ears could hear. If it was a commercial on TV, like the Oscar Mayer commercial, I would listen to the commercials on TV and go to the piano and could not find what I was hearing until I began to practice the scales. All of a sudden now, when I went back to those same songs as much later in life, I went, oh, it's in the scale. Oh, look at that. And there's the chord. Because I now, hey, how you doing, buddy? Because now I could hear the notes I was hitting wrong based upon what scale. Because it goes, this song, that commercial does go out of the key. That's not in the scale. But I knew that it wasn't in the scale, but it was easier to find because look at how close it was. I used to love to watch Popeye the Sailor Man. Wow, I've done it. And I began to practice that as a scale exercise so that I could, again, get it out of my head and then do it in any key. But only because I got in a book the proper way to finger chords and how to move my hands across Gigantor. That's all I remember of Gigantor. But because I learned how to properly move my fingers across the keys and then practiced, if though I had an instructor in front of me, all of a sudden my hands began to loosen up. And just from muscle memory, which is a term you hear a lot of musicians say they play from muscle memory, I could now play anything I've heard in my youth and continue severe thunderstorms and then continue to add more on top of that. I used to like to play. Used to hear the Pink Panther. Let me see. Right horn, Wrong hand. Left hand. What's the key was in? Minor scales. Mm. Wow, I haven't played the Pink Panther in years, but again, when I found myself hitting the wrong notes, I had to remember minor scales. Mm, E flat. There it is. There's that E minor chord. G major. Oh, the whole tone. There's that whole tone. Ba, 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 ba. F. Dun, ba. So now all of a sudden, all of these songs from my young youth became open to me musically, and then of course you continue to add more to it. But I used that this technique in playing gospel songs. So we want to unlock that sound of gospel. You have to understand its roots, its scale roots, its chord roots. The musicians of that time, what did they do? Now that's where the musicians of that time, their music went to, because I was immersed within a jazz band through junior high school and through high school in the New York City school system. We learned everything that wasn't church, but I brought that theory, that practice, that immersion in so much music to my practicing, to where I needed to hear this chord because I heard it in a classroom. I need to be able to bring that out and then apply it to whatever song that I'm playing. So when I began to insert and improvise on some of the hymns that were up tempo, all I could hear was jazz. And because that's what I would practice, it became a natural thing for me to take any song and to give it the type of sound that it was necessary. Now, Again, my chords are borrowed from every song I have ever heard played and by every musician I have ever heard played. Now, the again, I've always, and I have said this in the past, the older musicians of my day, when I was 12 and 13 years old, refused to let me see them play songs. But that didn't mean that if I didn't hear them, I didn't go back home and practice. Now, there was a musician in the church who would always play those chords, and he would never show me how to play them. So I would go home and try to figure out, how is he getting this chord? Is that the chord, or is that the chord? Then I had to go back home and go, okay, it could be that chord, but wow, that sounds better. But he had something at the bottom. Oh, that's the chord he had. He opened his hands up, and then he went there. Oh, then he dropped down. Because I kept hearing that note. That's where my ear training from being immersed in a jazz band and practicing scales in every key helped my ears to understand, find the notes you don't hear. That may sound a little difficult. If you know that these are your notes that you got to work from in this amount of the scales, play the notes you do hear. Well, find the notes you don't hear and play the notes you do hear. And sometimes you will get lost if you're doing just one hand. So I had to have both hands and hear the highest note and the lowest note. And then find what notes I could hear that I could reach. And hear the change. Okay, these are the jazz changes. I'm not sure where you would find them written at. Of course, all this came later. There we go. So now, using again the concept that I use of hearing the notes being played within their particular scale, there's no song I wouldn't tackle except for classical, because that's a whole different language. Doesn't mean I can't try. So when I try to fake it, that's what I am doing. I am faking it because I hadn't sat down with the sheet music. I can read single notes, but piano music I will stumble through because that is not my path that I took musically. But it doesn't mean I can't hear somebody play it and then look at the sheet music and go, oh, use my fingering. As you can see, my thumb now drops. Pinky. My thumb knows how to move to get to the note I want. As you can see, they can all play that change. And then my chord library can now improvise. Will this video be posted? Hey, how you doing, C Fresh? Yes, it will be posted. But getting back to my subject, I got off on the scales from the request from, I can't quite pronounce your name, about learning scales difficult. It's only difficult if you don't have a guide. Some either written guide on piece of paper or someone that says, let me hear you play the C, not C, but play me the, what scale have I not been to? Play the B flat major scale 2 octaves, and they would watch you start with the wrong finger, and they'll say, why did you start with your thumb when you should have started with your second finger? And you will say, well, I did not know. That would be the indication to a live instructor that you have not read the booklet that tells you B flat major scale starts with your second finger and ends with your fourth, to make it easier to play, less stress. Or that the E flat major scale starts with your third finger, which makes it easier to play, not with your thumb. Because the minute you go to your thumb, you're putting stress on your wrist. You're putting stress on these muscles because it should be here and not there. So if you're doing it from right here, now that you go here, what note? Now you're playing with the wrong finger and trying to play a scale. Your hands become tired, become stressed, and you don't want to play them no more. Where I say, if you learn the correct way to do it, and then you start to apply what those scales can allow you to do. Especially in gospel music, scales give you that articulate movement. There it is. This is one of my exercises. One of my exercises that I would do to help my fingers loosen up and to hear those changes that I would hear the other musicians do. There it is. There's one which I worked on for years, still don't have it right. Worked for years on that because I could not get it figure out how he got his hands. There it is. Years I worked on that because I didn't have the fingering placement with no one to show me. I had to go by what I heard and then use the practice techniques for not just E flat, but for D flat. To get comfortable enough and find the correct song to put that in. Of course, the left hand had to do the same. There we go. Had to look at it. And of course, this one. My cousin taught me this one. No. I still get it wrong. Still get that one wrong. You hear me do this chord a lot. That is from that practicing. But again, this is all what music is. Every day you're going to hear something different, or you're going to run across a movie theme, or you're going to run across a commercial on TV, or a song which you're learning, and you're going to hear something that you have never played before. And you're going to want to run to the keyboard real quick and figure out what did they do. Hezekiah Walker's song. What is that song? Can't nobody do me like that is can't nobody do me like Jesus. Never really learned that song, but that one movement always caught my ears. So many songs that in the past which I would shy away from because I had to learn so much music playing for as a church musician that I can now double back on to and revisit some of those chords that I omitted. Maybe. I know that chord. Every promise. That's what happens when I start going back to songs in my past. I gotta go and find myself going back to learn the correct fingering. But the approach is musically is so that what's inside of you when you're playing can come out no matter what the song is. There was a request. One of the comments on one of the songs was I did. I don't want to go back and look for it. Oh, I feel like going on. That's all the scales. Trials may come on every hand. All those notes are in the scales. All in the E flat scale. Its corresponding notes is also in the scales. Still in the scales, both notes. Still in the scales. Still in the scales. Still in the scales. So because I know the scales, where's the highest note? What note is it picking? So if I want to go with three-part harmony, all in the scales. All three-part harmony notes, which is like the gospel sound, that soulful sound in the major scales. Now, when you begin to borrow to help as they say, add a little seasoning to it. Hmm. What chord do I want to put there? Hmm. The chord I want, I hear it in my head, and I can do it because it's going to go to the 4. There it is. I'll find it. And I'm going to go to the 4 with the C, turn to the minor. This is how you get soulful, when you add the 7th chords and your jazz turn. 7th note or flatted 7th. That's why they call it an E flat chord, because you're flatting the 7th note. The 3, 4, 5, 6, 7th flat. That gives you that flatted chord. E flat 7th. Jazz turn around. Diminish. Now you're adding the elements of that jazz sound. Your contemporary chords, your tritones. This is that soulful sound that you hear. Your more established musicians put together, but won't show you. Trials may come. Walk it up. There it is. Trials may. There's what I want to do here. Here in the lowest note. Every hand. We're going to go to G sharp, F sharp rather. The turnaround. Now that's a classical turn. Classical turn. If you know any of the Richard Smallwood songs, this is what he uses. I like this chord. Every time I've heard that chord used in songs and just resolve right there. Outside of the scale, but it's that dissonant jazz sound. And you could resolve it if you wanted to. There are no mysteries in music. There is just misinformation. Armed with information, there is no song that you, as a church musician, and now I'll speak to the church musician, can learn, given that you have the information about the song, which is number 1 is the key, number 2 chords, the chord palettes that are available to you and the ones that were used in that song. If you don't have a sheet music reference, if you do play by sheet music, you have to have a or goodly trained ear to hear major, minor, diminished, seventh, to hear when a chord tone is played, to know where to find it, and then the application. How was it used? Was it used here to get you that change? What is this? Two, the 251? Let me see. I'm still learning this. 251. There we go. But that's an A flat. But they'll use that to get you from E flat 251 in A flat to get here, rather than going from here. To make it soulful, it sounds a lot prettier when you do the 2, the 5, 2, off the E flat. Because now we're in the circle of fifth, right? That gives it that soulful sound. Your classical turn to take you back into the where you were. E flat, 2, 5, 1 in a minor. Two, 5. The gospel turnaround. 3, 2, 2. Trying to count the numbers. Still in E flat. 2, 3, 4, 5. It is the ability of musicians to manipulate the notes that they're in front of them, no matter what instrument they're actually playing, is what gives the musician the advantage over the listener. I know I've been in E flat a lot. Go back down to C. Just going through some chords to a Smallwood song. As you can see, I'm all in the white keys because I know how to move around in them. I can just pick the ones I want to use. Of course, once you learn the chromatic keys, and you will find all these notes, chords are found in the scales. And yes, learning of hymns will greatly increase your chord palette 100-fold. If you were going to do the song I Surrender All, that chord is the same as this chord, minus this note. Sounds pretty when someone uses it, but they won't tell you this is all they're doing. They're just omitting that note in the scale. Again, listen for the notes you don't hear and don't play them. Play the notes you do hear. I should put you back into my piano mode. I'm staying in the white keys. There we go. That's when you begin to add notes. There it is. When you begin now to add the notes that are adjacent up, you change the sound. And what is this chord again? The whole tone scales. I told you these whole tone scales are in every song. It's just a matter of removing notes to recognize it. There it is again. There we go. And A7. A9. There's my 7. These chords are all found in the C major scale. All in the C major scale. We'll change our bass to give us that gospel sound. Turn. Turn around. Again. Turn the gospel turn bump. There it is. And the bass note really has can turn a chord in its depending upon how you're going to position it. Bum, bum, bum. Gives it that real majestic movie theater sound. There it is. Richard Smallwood had an opening to his song. Hmm. There we go. It was in a different key. Anyway, as I say, I learned from every musician's musical piece or song that they created and added it to my palette so that when I want to pull it out, first of all, I have to practice it to make sure I can clean it up if I haven't used it in a while. But then my hands, through muscle memory, can just say, okay, this is what it sounded like on the album. Here's the approach you want to use. Always practicing a scale just goes. B major. Okay, once I practice it, I begin to hear where did the final note take me, count up four, what's the cycle of fourths. So much for the beginner musicians to learn, and I hope my endeavor through Sound of Joy Music Services here on the YouTube channel is to give you all that hidden information that if you have not researched it for yourself, at least let me introduce you to what I was introduced to as a young musician. Now, I do a lot of talking, and I never give an opportunity for those who are watching to ask any questions. I believe we have 7 that are concurrently watching. So if you have any questions I could potentially answer, I am not going to play anymore. I believe I've been on at least an hour. I'm just going to check to see what are my numbers telling me, and I don't see. Looking at all my screens, I want to see how long I have been on. At any rate, I thank for those of you who have come in and for those who have asked questions. Of course, you can always contact me through comments on this video if you have any questions that may help you to enhance your style, enhance this journey of music. That's why I am here. Again, I greatly appreciate those who have been viewing and who have been sharing my channel. I look at the YouTube analytics, and I'm always conscious of people outside, viewers, I should say, outside of the United States who are watching my channel, and I'm encouraged when I get posts from people in different countries to learn this gospel music sound. It means that they want to introduce it or perhaps perfect it more where they are currently in ministry or just playing music for themselves. So I have no issue with sharing this style of music with anyone, anywhere. That's what this YouTube experience is all about, to provide content that is meaningful for the viewer. And of course, if I can get some information out to you that will help you, then I think How Excellent Thy Name, there is a video already posted of How Excellent Is Thy Name. If you go to my search drop down on my main page and just type in How Excellent, you will see the actual lesson come up. But I did 2 lessons. I did one totally on how to do the opening, and then the other lesson actually dealt with the actual song. As I think I have posted in my community tab. If you do a search on for any of the songs you're requesting, you may find out that it's already been asked for and the lesson already placed. Hey, welcome, DB. I would love to get a better understanding on what chords to play when moving chromatically down the scale. If you form any chord, and this is one of the things that I did as a youngster, I wanted to be able to hear chords in any key and get the fingering down for it. I would just practice the motion of moving up half notes. Two scales, gents. Let me take care of DB's question. Let me go back to one scene I have here. Who is that scene that has this one? Is it you? I'll tell you what. I can share this. This chord construction chart. I haven't used it yet, but this chord construction chart gives you all of the chord names in every key. Now, what happens is that musicians get stuck playing in their favorite key and refuse to go outside of their favorite key. There are so many chords that are not played, it's not even funny. Once you see all of these chords and how they are formed in each key, you will find out that you are already playing these chords, but you haven't a reference guide to show you that chord that you may consider your favorite chord has a name. And I think if I did this right, that's not all of them. There are more chords in every key. So when you're practicing chords, if you have a guide, which is what this is, I believe those that are on my Patreon page have this guide already. So they have more than what you may have seen. This guide was already posted for those who are on my Patreon page to be able to build their chords. Now, are these all the chords you need? This is a guide. This lets you know of the maybe 8 to 9 chords that you have been playing for years. There's in every other key, there's 8 to 9 more that you haven't been. This is the only way that you can build your chords, is to know that they exist for one and how to play them. But now to get back to the question about the scales. There we go. What I did as a youngster, without somebody showing me, is I would go to every key and I would go, okay, I want to go up here and move just to get the fingering down. Let me back this up a bit. And then play that one. And then play that one. So I can hear the same chord note in every key. Then I would go back down, placing my fingers where they needed to be so that they can be aligned up. And the hardest part is always was playing on the black keys. Then I would speed it up so that I could play the root chord in every key chromatically. I would chop it up. Now you notice I got 2 fingers that are doing absolutely nothing. When I began to involve those fingers, then I got comfortable playing this chord, which is a jazz chord, a 6 chord. I have to look up a chord to see what the correct name is in every key. so I can get comfortable playing them. And that same process. So now if I went to a minor chord, which is flatting the third note, 1, 2, 3, flat the third, the same process. So there's all sounds minor. There we go. No, there it is. There's the minor. Chromatically down. Minor. Minor, right? Minor, there it is. Minor, 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 minor. And then the same thing. Omitting the fourth finger just so I can play the minor notes, keys. Because when you would hear songs that actually used all of these notes, you wanted to hear how was it being built. And yes, I lost a considerable amount of time in my life where I did not go out and play basketball or run with the friends if I was get my chance at the piano, which was in my home, or the organ in which my father had in his repair shop, because I also worked in his repair shop. That's where I spent a majority of my time trying to finger out the chords I wanted to hear. And as I say, as I began to be able to purchase song books on my own, I began to learn the names of these chords that I was hearing in my head that I could play. But if you were to ask me what's the name of that chord, I said, I don't know. But this is the notes that I'm playing. I'm playing a C on the bass, and I'm playing a C and an E flat and an A flat with another E at the top, not knowing that that chord has a name. I try to give as much information and a guide on the YouTube space for the younger musicians who don't have someone who has no problem sharing everything they know, but giving it out in a way that it builds that person. What good is it for you to know every chord if you don't know where that chord was formed and how it's applied in for what I do, gospel music, which I call, again, gospel music. It's a combination of every style of music that is out there. Are you manually zooming in and out with the camera or the software? Oh, that's manual zooming. I have a remote zoom on my overhead camera. We try to be advanced technology here. You will find a lot of places don't do that. When I have one-on-one lessons, that's when I usually use that camera because I want to be able to show the actual fingering that my hands are doing. If I'm playing, my hands can move fast, so fast that you don't know when I hit a chord until I'm on the next chord. But if I can zoom in, you'll see the actual muscle movement. Let's see how I can do that. I always forget who has that scene. No, who has that scene? I have so many scenes here. Of course, now I can't find. There it is. That's who has that scene. When I'm playing, my hands are in. I'm thinking 4 chords ahead of the song that I'm playing, so that when I get to that part of the song, I already know how to form my fingers. Let's see. A flat. This is my scale practice. I miss a note sometimes. Let's pick a nice traditional gospel song in A flat. I'm so glad Jesus lifted me, which I think is one of the request songs, but they spelled it wrong. I'm so glad. That's quick in my thinking. So all of that movement is already pre-programmed, predetermined when I am playing. So to bring it in, there's a drop. So I'm constantly making up what I'm going to do based upon, again, the melody of the song. I'm so glad Jesus lifted me. I'm so glad I'm so glad jazz changed. Jesus lifted me. My half tone again, but a jazz tritone version of it. Right? My normally we here, but now I'm here. So I can put that turn in there, get that tritone sound. I have to hear that tone in my head to know that I'm playing it the way I hear it, which means the lowest note, highest note, and what's on top of it, what's in between. I'm so glad I could go that chord again. I could have gone that Jesus lifted. Could have gone here that Jesus lifted. I could have gone here. I've made my decision what chord I'm going to play before I get there, because of the path I'm taking. Could have stayed right there. Diminished, major, seventh, diminished, seventh. Now, I'm not calling out those names in my head when I'm playing, but what I am hearing out is where the chord names sound, so that when I'm playing it, if I play the wrong note, I will go, but that's not what I wanted to hear. If I go, no, I don't want to go there. That's where I wanted to go. But I want to put that change on there. Little jazz turn. But if you look, that chord, that note is omitted, is put there, but it is here. So that tone is still there. It's just that I changed the placement. So I'm so glad. Normally this note would have been there, but I'm now going to give it a different sound. I have to be able to hear that A in there. But if I don't know these chords exist and practice them, I will never hear them. I have to know these chords exist. But when you're playing at the speed of thought, you have to hear the chord before you actually play it, which is what I believe jazz musicians do. They practice so that they can hear every change in their head and then immediately decide to jump to it. And that is not that's not an easy feat. That does not come by hearing, that comes from practicing, which is why I stressed practice, perfection, and then performance. Once you've perfected your practice and it comes time to perform, you can now pick and choose how you want to sound musically, which makes it sometimes difficult for me to play with a bass player because I'll think alternative bass patterns based upon the chords I want to use at that particular time. Now, of course, if I were playing in a band, I would play with the structure what we have practiced. But if I'm by myself without a bass player to anchor my chords, then I'm free to maneuver around bass notes. That's why I loved playing the organ so much because I didn't have a bass player, but my left foot was my bass player. So freed up my left hand from playing bass. So now I could chord around a song the way I felt it at for that particular song. Make sure I didn't miss any other questions. Scales essentially used in gospel. Oh yes, scales in gospel. The major scale, both the harmonic minor scale and the minor scale. And you will find both of them in use in the I'm gonna say the urban gospel songs of the late 80s and 90s. You'll find the harmonic minor scales in use there. Major scales, of course, are in use in the gospel songs emanating from the James Cleveland era and going into the Hawkins era and the Andre Crouch era. That's where you will find those scales mainly in play. When it became a lot of urban music, you got to hear those minor scales. And of course, if you learned any Richard Smallwood songs, you got both, depending upon what song he created at that time. It made you a gospel classical musician, which is why I enjoyed hearing it first and then putting it into practice because I had to now implore the use of those scales because he would mix them up. Let me see, which one can I go to demonstrate the Richard Smallwood songs without getting a copyright? Total Praise is written all in major and I want to say major. Total Praise is written in major, and he did put one diminished chord in there. There's his diminished chord. There's his minor chord, right? Again, once you hear it the first time, you can't unhear it. But he wrote other songs that really implored minor keys. There's his minor chords. Always want to get that right. Seventh. the song so long. Oh, this is minor. Gotta resolve it. In all G. C. So his music, you really had to study. Where is he going with his music? And once you learned his path, every song he's written now becomes angels watching over me, angels watching over. Jazz. E, B flat, B major. Angels watching. Got a phone call to answer. Let me just see who that is. 1 second. Sorry about that. I had to take that call. So the what was the question? What scales are essential to gospel music? The major scales. Play that correctly. The minor scale. The harmonic minor scale. Because there's a change there. One note change gives you the harmonic minor scale, and it depends upon what that songwriter used. Glory to Glory by Fred Hammond in the key of F. He used the harmonic minor scale, where Saints in Praise, Judy McAllister song "I Will Celebrate." She used the minor scale. That's what I used to do on that song. Been a long time. I will praise. E flat. And it goes to D minor. So yes. Now that doesn't mean that you shouldn't learn all the scales that are out there, because music is subject to always morph into something based upon the songwriters and the producers, something different. But I would say 70 to 80% of your traditional gospel songs are in the major scale. Well, of course, they use sevenths, minor sixes, and diminished chords to give that soulful sound. When you get into the classical type songs, the Kurt Carrs, the Richard Smallwoods, the Keith Pringle did "Call Him Up." That's written in the minor six chord, minor six scale. You hear that? Yeah. I don't have my headphone on. The minor six scale for Keith Pringle's. If I can reach over to my piano, E flat. Call him up. Can't remember how that goes. If you confess the Lord, call him up. Minor scale. Da, 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 da. Right. Minor scales. So if you wanted to play those songs and you were unfamiliar with the path of a minor scale, you struggled hearing all the notes. And then once you got comfortable with that, you're like, oh, that's all it is. It's just he's dropping down the third note and giving these same chord patterns that you would find in the natural system. Just it made it a bit minor. Again, gospel music refuses to follow rules. They go in and out of the rules for that particular sound, which it did its purpose. It drew in the listener that said, "Wow, why is it not a major note?" But that sounds, that's real for the term for back in my day, hot, funky. What's the word else they used to use? Raw in its sound. But musicians will always gravitate to with the sound that captures their ear first. Then they'll sit down to the piano and they try to duplicate that sound, and then they'll try to incorporate that sound into their current playing. Kind of like adding sugar to grits for those who like salt on grits. Which is better, sugar or salt? Depends on the taste buds of the person who's eating it. So, what's the better sound for when you're doing gospel music? It depends upon the person who's playing it. That's number one. And then the person who's listening to it, their congregation, their audience. Number two, your audience will let you know whether or not they appreciate, as The Rock would say, what you're cooking. Any other questions before I let you go? There's a phone call I'm going to have to answer. I just put someone off. Just verifying that I didn't miss any questions. Want to thank those who came in. Micah Gins, if I'm pronouncing that, it's like two I's or two L's. Please forgive me if I'm mispronouncing your name. Buddy Burnett, C Fresh, DB Moshe. Right, that's everybody that has participated in the chat. Thank you all for coming in. It's always great to have visitors come whenever I do go live. According to YouTube, this is the time when I have the most people viewing my channel, and I believe we have 10 concurrent viewers right now, total of 79 views as I am monitoring this. So I will try to be conscious of maybe having a quick, or at least an hour long live stream on Saturdays, just to stay in live contact with my viewership, take questions, show concepts and tips and techniques that you can apply to what you're doing to your music now. I still have several viewer requests to get to. Usually that means I got to take the time to learn the song, and in some cases they're requesting that I change the key. I may be pushing back on that changing the key because it means I've got to learn the song in the correct key before I change it, and that's unfair to me because that takes me away from doing a song that is somebody wants in a key that is more favorable for me to learn quicker and teaching. But I will look at that in the future. I hope you've been liking the series for my beginners, musicians. The building their chord foundation. This is all part of it. I didn't just roll out of bed and start playing. I had to learn. Once I got information in front of my eyes, now I could link that up with my ears. Thanks, I can watch this all day. Thank you. As I say, I'm over 1,700 videos. I have to do another count to see how far over 1,700 I am at. But I've always enjoyed being able to share not just the ability to play, but the greater ability to instruct on how I play. In fact, I think I have a request through Gmail of one of my viewers who wants to talk to me about helping them uh, increase their style of playing. I do take consultations. I do it either by Gmail, if you just want some words of advice, some videos I can point you to, and through, as you can see, Zoom or Skype. If you want one-on-one lessons, there is a fee. Yes, there is. There is a fee because the old words of the monetary gods, time is money. So if you take my time, which means you are preventing me from doing something that helps to bring finances to this channel, to be able to keep up with the equipment and the software that I purchase. So, and I find that when you charge a person, they're more attentive to what they're learning. But I keep it very reasonable. And of course, there is my Patreon page, which allows you to support me for just $5. And for that $5, you get a greater access to me. It's described on what happens on that page. This way, if you want a particular song done, I can actually play that song, create a video just for you, and you're the only one who sees it. But that's for supporting me monthly. Again, and your support does one thing: it keeps me updating my software, updating my equipment, and keeping the content growing on this channel. So I thank you again for all your support. Sam Tobit, Sound of Joy Music Services. I work off of the scriptures, which says Psalms 101, make a joyful noise unto the Lord. Take care, and I will see you on my next live stream, perhaps during the week or certainly on next weekend. And I gotta get the phone call I gotta make. Take care, and thanks for watching. Also, I am also simulcasting on my Facebook channel, my Facebook page, and my Sound of Joy Musicians group. For those who are watching, you of course have seen me. I think I did my last live stream with you all earlier this week. So I give both channels, both stations or positions in this space access to me musically. Take care, and I will see you when I see you. Be blessed.